Hi, I'm Dylan Fox, and our other group members are Alec, Knappenberger, and Emily Staker, and the title of our presentation is The Efficacy of Fundraising at Loyola Marymount University. So while immigration is a national controversy in the United States, on our campus, opinions have been pretty null for the past academic year. Magis members went around LMU's campus asking for donations for their largest philanthropic event, the 48-hour walk-run event, in which each dollar donated to one member was equitable to one lap around the school. And the headlining of fighting immigration, injustices, and aiding two separate causes has brought up questions in regards to the ethics of fundraising. So, immigration is obviously a huge issue in the United States. It is often brought up in the political setting and on college campuses, and yet at our school it has seemed like it is a very people don't really have very many opinions on it, and there's been little to no dialogue whatsoever regarding immigration policy in America. So Magis, one of the service organizations, their big event this year, their 48-hour walk run, which they do every year for a different cause, this year they dedicated it to immigration and immigration awareness and just basically educating the general public about the issues surrounding immigration. So, and to do that, like I said earlier in our slide, they had students who were part of Magis walk around the school, and each lap was equated to $1 donated to their cause. And this, of course, which was for raising awareness for immigration. And yet, we also found that not only were they trying to raise awareness for immigration, but they were also fundraising for two other causes, which were the Build a Miracle Foundation, which goes to Tijuana and builds houses for people, and also for an inner city school to raise money for the school and help it out. So this sort of misinformation about exactly what they were fundraising for kind of brings up the question about the ethical nature of this form of philanthropy and fundraising. So for this event, Magis was actually fundraising for two separate causes, which were Build a Miracle Foundation, which goes down to Tijuana and builds houses, and to raise money for a school in Los Angeles. So that kind of created a misunderstanding among students about exactly what Magis was fundraising for. A lot of people thought the donations were going to some obscure, ambiguous benefactor that no one really knew about, and that kind of creates a sort of mistrust of Magis for the students when they really do not know who they're donating to. So our techniques for observing Magis were we interviewed both members and non-members about their thoughts on the event. We also used physical observation by just observing during convo and watching how the event went to see if it was efficient or not. And so that led to our research question being, was Magis efficacious in raising awareness on immigration concerns through philanthropy in terms of creating a campus-wide dialogue?
For our methods, we primarily used covert observation, which is, of course, observing from a distance. We were trying to keep things as inconspicuous as possible. We were, looking at things we couldn't get from interviews and other methods of research. We also used student interviews and participant interviews. So we interviewed students after they had, been through the demonstration, after they had talked to participants and or donated, and we got just their opinions on the protest, and we asked them a few questions. Then we also interviewed participants who were directly involved in the demonstration. We did this to kind of get a better feel for their cause and what they were really out there, what they were doing. So we each spent about 1 to 2 hours at the demonstration, and we did this separately. We came with individual goals in mind so as to cover as broad of a spectrum as possible. One of us went into it looking to judge the overall effectiveness of the demonstrators in attracting students. So it is a college campus where students are busy with studying and free time, so it can be difficult to just get students to listen and just hear your cause. So that was one thing we were looking at. Another one of our members, was judging the effectiveness of demonstrators in sparking a campus-wide conversation. Here we were just trying to see if they were obviously, successful in creating a conversation around campus regarding the issues of immigration and the other issues that they were, out there supporting. And our final group member was judging the efficacy of the group's fundraising efforts. Most of these were done through student interviews as well as secondary accounts such as news articles covering the demonstration. And with all of these research methods, we were able to get a significant amount of data. This photo shows members of the MAGIS organization participating in a protest for Immigration Awareness Week. This was, in addition to their efforts in the 48-hour walk and run. What they did here was they joined and linked arms around the Layer, a cafeteria on campus here at Loyola Marymount, and they blocked students from entering. And their message in doing this was to say that the easy way is not always the ethical way. I was there that day and I saw their demonstration, and like other students, I was a bit confused with this message. I didn't think it was quite as clear as they meant it to be. Other students were also confused. Students we interviewed weren't really sure what the protest was about. They just knew that some of their fellow classmates were not letting them go into the lair. The demonstration ended when PSAFE, the campus police, disbanded the protest and put an end to it. So this touches on the theme of disconnect again between the cause of a demonstration and the actual demonstration. So there's just more confusion created here. We got this photo from Crowley in the LA Loyolan, published in 2014.
All right, so for our results and analysis, we had some pretty fascinating things come up. So first, we deduced that MAGIS was actually not effective in relaying the beneficiaries of the philanthropy, meaning that in mostly all of our personal interviews, people had little to no idea where their money was exactly going. And although this is a huge dilemma in the ethics of fundraising, they were still extremely successful in raising money, and they raised $6,000 for the Build a Miracle Foundation and the Inner City LA School. So obviously, even though their methods were extremely ethical, they still did something quite amazing for these two foundations. We analyzed all of this with covert observation, as mentioned earlier, because we felt that if the students knew that we were analyzing them, it would change their behavior a lot. And so we made sure that they weren't aware that we were analyzing and studying the way that they conducted their philanthropy. Additionally, we realized that more people tended to donate money when they were having a personal conversation with someone because of the theory of proxemics. And Shepard, who studies the concept of proxemics, deduced that fundraising is a lot more effective when you're having interpersonal conversations, because it's a lot easier for people to not connect when they're just walking by a donation box rather than somebody coming up to them and asking them for money. He believes that that's a lot more effective, and that was in his study in 1996. So the mismatch between students' understanding of the philanthropy and the actual success of the philanthropy itself brought our group to think about concepts of ethos, and we wondered if MAGIS was satisfied in their work, since they did raise $6,000 for two amazing organizations. However, they did not properly raise awareness to the injustices of immigration, and we felt like the general student sentiments were of complacency and ambivalence, meaning that students really didn't get passionate about the injustices of immigration. However, they still tended to think that all of the fundraising and philanthropy was to benefit immigration, but we recognized little to no discourse on the issue. Alright, so we have a few suggestions to groups who are looking to fundraise on Loyola Marymount University campus in the future. So our first one is to isolate one cause to benefit or to raise awareness for. The biggest disconnect we noticed in MAGIS's efficacy was raising money for one thing, but trying to raise awareness for a completely different issue. And we believe that groups can be a lot more effective if they're raising money and awareness for one issue at one time. Secondly, we believe that people should continue a grassroots approach to fundraising, but to ensure that all those who are fundraising are well educated as to what they are raising money or awareness for. One thing that we kept noticing that was reoccurring was that a lot of students that were fundraising would say, we are raising awareness for immigration and ask for monetary donations. However, the money that they were collecting was going to two separate issues, the Build a Miracle Foundation and Los Angeles Inner City Schools. And so we think it's essential and imperative that when people are going out and fundraising, they fully understand what they are fundraising for so that they can properly educate people on what they're donating to. We believe that this is the most ethical way to raise money. Third, we realize that it is imperative that people actualize the fact that raising money does not solve any social injustices. So the money that was collected did not solve any immigration problems, as one, the two places that were being benefited through the monetary donation have little to no connection to immigration issues, and two, even donating to an organization that does help certain issues doesn't really solve any social injustice because it's not stopping injustice at its source. That takes a much more social movement rather than just monetary donations. Lastly, we think it's important to target groups that can easily empathize with the cause or beneficiary, as individuals are far more likely to donate when they can identify with the issue. We think one of the biggest issues in this specific instance was that not a lot of students at LMU can identify with immigration issues, and so we think that is what caused a lot of apathy and uninvolvement, is that when kids at LMU hear immigration, they don't necessarily connect to the issue, and they're not necessarily going to be passionate about it or want to donate. And so you really need to know your crowd and know what they're going to be passionate about, and that's kind of how you gear yourself up for success.
So as you can see behind me, this is our appendix, and this image represents the layout of Magis's fundraising event, the 48-hour walk/run. And so as you can see, we show the library and Hilton and the two buildings closest to the event. And these arrows represent the Palm Walk, where students walk to and from class and dorms and other areas. These represent the palm trees that stood behind the event. This red rectangle is Magis's long table that they used, where they conducted, it was the center of their operation, essentially. These black rectangles are the boards we talked about earlier, which contained a great deal of information about immigration. And these star shapes are people walking around the table. And so our group members, we had one person observed from inside the coffee shop, Jasmine's, in the library. One group member observed from around this building, Hilton. And another group member observed from the seating, which was behind the event in the field over here. And something we really noticed was that most of the fundraising was conducted right in around this table. And we watched as students really didn't talk to other people about the event as they walked past. They really just kind of stayed with their friends and who they were walking with. And students, for the most part, did not stop at these boards to look at them. If anything, most of the students would just glance at them as they walked by and then just completely indifferently continue walking past. And that's pretty much what we observed in this event.
So these are our references. We mostly used stuff from the LA Loyolan, articles published about the demonstration, as well as photos. We also used an article on proxemics, which was published by M. Shepard in 1996. And lastly, we used an article about campus activism in general and whether it is still a possibility in today's day and age. And that was published by G. Spanier in 2008.